Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm really excited to be speaking about marketing. It's something that I've been super passionate about, and I'm beginning more into of like the fiqh of marketing, the fiqh of social media. So I'm really excited. Inshallah, I hope this is of benefit. And let me see if I can share my screen. Okay. Can you all see that?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So before I get started, this is more of a marketing checklist for Muslim communities. These are problem areas or things that I've identified while working with nonprofits or just youth leaders in the community and trying to figure out what we can do better to hopefully engage the youth and just connect the Muslim community in general. So this is, and you can screenshot the slides if you feel necessary. I'll also send this to Asad at the end, inshallah, and he hopefully will send out to everybody. But this is just an overview about what we'll be going over. It's the things to look at before you start marketing. And then these are some things in the marketing process that you might already be in, or you might be starting from scratch. So audience research and figuring out who you're actually trying to target and how you're trying to do that for the youth or just Muslim individuals within your community, collecting and curating stories about people, keeping consistent with design and communication, which I feel like is kind of a hot button topic when it comes to Muslim communities, but I'll go over that. And then creating centralization for like websites and social media platforms, testing it, and tracking information for grants and community review and fundraising, which kind of just goes over how to collect data and present it, as Brother Harris said, for like fundraising. Okay, so first we have audience and platform. So tip number one or first checklist is not every platform is necessary, and know your audience and meet their needs. So what I feel like a lot of the times what happens is with youth organizations or Muslim organizations in general is that we feel like we need to connect with the youth on everything. So we feel like, okay, we need to be on every social media platform. We need to reach them and connect with them where they are. And that's not always the case and not really what needs to be done, especially with a billion social media platforms out there. Like, where do you start? So the two I always tell organizations, and I'm sure you've already been doing this, especially with like COVID and utilizing like live streams and such. But for Facebook, the older demographic and the moms, the dads, the ammos, the haltos, the daddy dadas, whatever you want to say, they're the ones who are on Facebook, right? But they love seeing the youth doing great work. And so we need to utilize this more so for them. And so when we talk about marketing to the youth, we need to keep the parents and the elder generation in mind, because they're the ones who are going to donate to and have the monetary aids to keep funding these youth programs. So Facebook is more so to target to them and the older demographic, have these longer community stories, these longer visual components where they get to see their loved ones, their youth, their kids, their grandkids doing the great work in the community and saying like, hey, they're going to take care of me and my community when I get older. And so they'll take these leadership positions, and that's what you want to communicate from a marketing perspective on Facebook. You want to sell those stories. And that's the biggest takeaway from this presentation is selling stories, not really selling events. And I'll get into that more in the next slide. And then for Instagram, you have the younger demographic. I'm sure everyone is on there, but are you really utilizing it the best to your ability? Are you making the youth feel valued and heard? And so a lot of times what I see is that the Muslim communities and the youth programs, they're posting a lot of these events and these flyers, but like, are you really getting that interaction with the youth? Are you utilizing your live streams? Are you utilizing like polls to see what do the youth want to be talking about? What do they want to see? And Sister Amina mentioned this before, but the idea of food, right, or having pizza at events, having that just small component of like, hey, we're having an event, and what do you guys want to eat? Do you want to have ice cream or do you want to have brownies? And like, it's so simple, but it really does make the youth feel valued and heard. And it's like a quirky, fun way. And it's not just, pushing events and halakas at them, but it's creating this playful atmosphere that is very youth centric and really engages them. And also just short form content. A lot of times what you have is people posting these long form texts or fundraising or event flyers that just have so much packed information. And I'll go over that again, but just the design of it doesn't need to be flashy at all. It needs to be minimal and kind of get to the point, because the youth are looking for just short bits of information, like how they can get involved. Okay, then collecting and curating stories. Be people first and profit second, and sell stories and experiences. And you're probably thinking, like, as a Muslim or a youth organization, what do you mean by profiting? Like, we don't make money off of this. Our intentions are to just, benefit the youth. But what I mean by that, and I'm not going to out anybody because I did look at a couple of organizations from the logos that were on this event flyer, but I can out my own organization because I love them, but I've been a part of 901 Ummah. And so what I mean by people first and profit second is you have these platforms, and when you go to these pages, all you see is event flyers, but you're not investing in an event. You're not investing in, like a program. You're investing in people. You're trying to sell a story and you're trying to sell an experience. And when you want youth to be involved in your initiatives, why don't you have youth like on your pages showing what is like being done by the youth in the community? And I always just found it so funny and so counterintuitive, because we want youth to, like, see themselves in these spaces and see it as a safe space, but you don't have pictures of the youth anywhere to like visualize and see themselves actually being a part of this. So I've always thought that was just really funny. So when I say people first and profit second, it's exactly that. Have these outward facing visuals and photos of the youth actually doing the work. Showcase the people behind the programs rather than just pushing out the same flyer over and over again, because the flyer is meant to answer the questions of who, what, where, and why, right? But you want people and you want the youth to answer the how. How can I get involved? How can I be a part of this? How can I see myself benefiting my community? So if you take anything away from this presentation, please start highlighting the people and the people you're investing in the communities, because that's what really you're trying to market. You're trying to market the stories and the experience to your communities and to the youth. So that is for collecting and curating stories. Okay, so keep it consistent with design and communication. I feel like this is also a hot button topic, because we think of like design and marketing as like, okay, that's just social media, as being flashy, as being XYZ. But when you keep things consistent, you're connecting with people and you're actually creating trust. So a great example of this, and like you may not even realize it, but we see branding and logos every single day. But like Daysir Seminary or like Gullam Institute, right? It's the idea that you see that blue Q or you see that green star and you automatically think of Daysir Seminary, you automatically think of Gullam Institute. And you have like this feeling of, okay, I've worked with this organization before. I have trust in this organization. I know what they can produce and I want to be a part of it. And that goes straight back to the youth. You are spending a lot of time trying to create these flashy flyers when in reality, you just need to keep it so minimal. Like youth, if you can captivate their attention within 3 seconds, they're already out. So when you're trying to spend all these times to make things look super flashy, not only are you taking away from like actually taking the time to create a, great program, but just it's so unnecessary. You got to keep it minimal, get to the point as quickly as you can. And I really wish there was more time where I could talk about like design hierarchy and things that, would make for a great flyer. But if you're starting from scratch, these are resources, and I have a slide at the end that has everything listed as well. But just resources if you're starting from scratch, or if you want to hopefully, maybe take it a little bit further and just rebrand and create that minimalistic thing. And then for one thing that I do want to highlight for the resources is Canva, and I'm sure everyone has used it before, but create templates, right? So if you have like reoccurring events, you don't need to create a new flyer every single time for that event. Create a very minimalistic marketing flyer, and then just plug in your information, right? The event, again, you're not selling an event. Nobody really is going to take the time, and I'm guilty of this too, where if I'm being flooded with event flyers, I'm not going to read everything. I already know what the event is about, but I want to know like, how can I get involved? If it's very like, this is the title, this is the body copy, this is like, I know where to get the information. It's that consistency. And then also for communication, you have like platforms to schedule posts, because it becomes so tedious to constantly be worrying about having to post every single day, when you can be utilizing a free software to just push out these medias for you. And so it just makes everything a lot like streamlined. And then for messages and outside organizations, messages of outside of organizations. So again, going back to the human component and that youth component, yes, your organization is doing great work. Your organization is creating events and all these things for the youth and for people within your community. But again, there are people within your community that are doing great work that should also be highlighted. So if you have like a sister who maybe is like baking goods during Ramadan to sell for like something that she's doing independently, highlight those things. It makes people feel valued. It makes people feel heard. It makes them feel seen. And those are the things that you're really trying to market. Okay, cross-platform centralization. do all that and make it into a website. And what I mean is you have all these great social platforms now. You created a brand identity, you created trust, consistent communication. Now have a website that houses all of that. Your website is meant to be, if I am new into the community, or maybe, like I'm trying to find something that maybe I saw on social media, but I can't find now. Your website is supposed to be just a hub for all of that, right? So your landing page will have a carousel or a banner at the top that just showcases how to join. Again, answering those how questions: how to join, how can I be involved, and just addressing what's going on within the community. And then for content pages, you will look at about. So if I already am sold by your social media now, right? Like I'm a youth, now I want to know more about it. Like, is it targeted to me? Like, what demographic do you have? Like young professionals, or are you just youth? So your mission, your vision, the overview, and the team. And I can't emphasize the team enough, because so many times, alhamdulillah, within our own community, we have people who may be coming for like schooling, right? And they see our youth organization. They're like, hey, do you have any like brothers or sisters that are looking for like an apartment, because I'm new to the city? So that's super valuable as well. Things to do, again, just highlighting your events, your calendar, your news. And then my favorite is always, again, the community aspect of marketing. You're marketing all these other organizations and just your Muslim community as a whole, outside of just your youth organization. So your mosques within the communities, other Muslim organizations, your resources that people can reach out to. Like if I'm a youth and I need maybe like an older sister mentor, maybe resources within the community that are just specifically for me. Everybody loves to eat, so Zabiha restaurants, prayer timings, all of that. And then how to join, again, volunteering, mentoring applications, and then of course the donate page. And again, just cross platforms, meaning if everything on your social media is to be centralized, take all that information and put it in one location. And your website is something that's going to be updated once a month. It's not meant to be super tedious compared to your social media, where it will be more consistent communication. Number 5, don't be discouraged, and tap into talent for A/B testing. And what I mean by that is not everything is going to work, and find out what does and stick with it. You might be trying a billion things, especially with COVID right now. Use just, you get tired of being at a computer for 8 hours a day with school. And then on top of that, being there for like a lecture and what the case may be. So don't be discouraged if, you might be trying all these marketing tactics and they aren't working. And on top of that, nothing beats word of mouth. You can do everything right. You can have, you can be having this great engagement online, but nothing makes youth feel more value than when you send them something directly and you're like, hey, I think this would be great for you. And maybe this is an event we can go to together, right? I know it makes me feel really good. And then tap into talent and incentives. And this is for people who may be having or have like missed organizations within their communities. But something that I did, and like I think everybody should be doing, is this is a lot for one person to do, right? And so you may be thinking, I don't have the human capital to be doing all these things, but you do. When it came to like video content, for example, that's something that everybody loves seeing right now with like Instagram Reels or TikTok or whatever the case may be. But tap into the talent within your missed organizations, right? If you know that like X amount of kids did photography and X amount of kids did videography, tap into them and be like, hey, like I think you do amazing work and you should be doing this for like, my youth organization. And it makes them feel so good about themselves because they're doing something they're loved, they're driven, and they can create and they have the freedom to create. And you're also getting, like the families, they're getting your friends, they're getting so many other people involved within their own inner circle. And incentivize it, meaning they can write off volunteer hours if they need, or maybe, put it on their resumes, all those things. And then collecting information for grants and community. So data is a part of the job and that is okay. And this is another hot button topic, but data and is just a part of marketing. And I know that's something that as Muslim communities, we think, okay, we don't care. Like at the end of the day, like our intentions are to impact even one person. And like everything we're doing is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? But it's just a part of the job and that is okay. So this goes with what Brother Harris was saying a little bit about fundraising, and it'll just make your fundraising a little bit easier. But when you have the Excel spreadsheet of dates, events, attendance, your area of reach and cost, at the end of the year, you can create a yearly report of to show at these fundraisers of being like, hey, this is how many people we've impacted, this is how many youth have been involved, and this is how many we hope to, like get involved next year. And when it comes to community grant funding, meaning if you go to a like city fund or apply for a corporation grant, whatever the case may be, you have all these metrics already to help your case. And a great example of this is, unfortunately, when COVID hit, I worked with a lot of nonprofits to help them get funding because there was a lot of unexpected budgeting issues and whatever the case may be. And so helping them try to collect all these numbers on when everything was already said and done was a bit harder than if they already had like the numbers, they were collecting it as they went on. So it's definitely something that I recommend, and it just makes your fundraising easier when you go to those community heads and you're like, hey, this is why you should be investing in our youth. This is the things they've done, and this is how much it's going to cost XYZ. And then also, I wanted to recommend a book because this space gets really heavy sometimes in the sense of you might get discouraged and you might lose sight or focus of the importance of it. And data is something that is important, but again, like our intentions are pure, they're meant to be pure, but it can still get like heavy. So the Fiqh of Social Media by Omar Osman, this is more so, this book is more dedicated to managing your own social media platform, which you should be doing if you go into this space, because again, you're going to be the one that people look at. And if you're on the Teams page of your website, people are going to be looking at your content. So make sure it's clean, but it just realigns you. Like this book genuinely just realigns like your intentions. And I recommend it for anybody who wants to get into the space. Read it before. If you're in the middle of it and you feel like you're getting burned out, read it again. It definitely helps. And so questions and then resources, again, this is for design, communication. And then if you realize maybe during this presentation that you like design and you want to get into design, reading Designing Brand Identity by Alina Wheeler, a lot of the principles I talked about today was in this book, and it's phenomenal. It talks about psychology of design and how to impact different demographics. So yeah, that's about it.